Hello and welcome to the Early Learning Coalition of Miami-Dade and Monroe's podcast. We are here to talk about building stronger families. And today we're going to be talking about why early learning matters to Miami-Dade's future. My name is Alexis Calatayud, and I serve as the Community Engagement Liaison and Public Policy Liaison at the Early Learning Coalition. My co-host and partner in crime is Mr. Evelio Torres, our president and CEO. Today, we are blessed to have as our very first guest, Miami-Dade County Mayor, Daniella Levine Cava. And Mayor Cava is not only our first female mayor, our first Jewish mayor, our first social worker mayor, but has an illustrious multi-decade career of service to our community that has breadth and depth on every major issue that is affecting families across our community. We are so grateful to have you join us today and to lean in and have conversations that are essential to the future of our young families in Miami about early childhood education and early childhood development.
Thank you so very much. I'm very honored to be your first guest.
Thank you. Thank you. And so Mr. Torres, I wanted to ask if you could share a little bit for both our viewing audience at home, the moms and dads that we're excited to invite into this conversation, a little bit more about our Early Learning Coalition in Miami-Dade and Monroe.
Sure. Good morning. The Early Learning Coalition is the local administrator for the state's early learning programs. That includes the voluntary pre-kindergarten program available to all 4-year-olds in Florida, as well as the school readiness program, which is a workforce support / early learning program. It provides a childcare subsidy in the form of a voucher for working families so they can go to work while their children learn in an early learning program. So we serve on every single day we serve around 20,000 children in that particular program. And it's great for children, it's great for families, it's great for employers, it's great for our local economy. So it's a multi-purpose program, and it's supported by our legislature and the federal government.
And today we'll be kind of diving in and focusing on what supporting our Miami-Dade families means, especially in the context of early childhood education. And we want to talk about the interconnections of early learning, workforce participation, affordability, and community prosperity. I think one of our biggest questions that's driving the moment, not just in Miami or Florida, but the nation, and what we want to pose as kind of one of our starting conversations, Madam Mayor, what do you feel are some of the biggest challenges facing the young families in our community in Miami-Dade?
Affordability. And not only is that housing, which has been a great focus of mine as your mayor, but transportation, which combined makes us perhaps the least affordable place to live in the country at this time, more so even than New York City. Recently, that's been revealed. But childcare, to allow our families to go to work and provide for their households, they have to be able to have quality, reliable childcare that they can afford. And unfortunately, that is in short supply. So the policies that we have and the programs through the Early Learning Coalition are critically important for providing that peace of mind, stability, quality, readiness for school that our children need.
Mayor, let me ask you, we've known each other since the Hurricane Andrew days, going back to the hurricane recovery of those days. And I know how much you care about children and families and the elderly and the disabled and the environment, including our precious Biscayne Bay and the Everglades. But now you're dealing with so many other challenges. The affordability is a big issue for us too. Although we focus on early learning, families come to us and they're having a very difficult time. And I know that, again, you've done a lot of work on the affordable housing situation. What is the current status of not only the county's efforts, and I know you can't solve all the problems because you don't have a magic wand, but is there any federal money or anything that you see coming to this community in the future to help with the affordability issue?
Starting with housing, which is unfortunately such a major, if not the biggest cost factor for families. We have doubled down. So we declared a housing affordability crisis in 2022. We've built 15,000 units of workforce and affordable, 22,000 in the pipeline, and that's just the county. We're very fortunate we have surtax dollars, which come from commercial real estate deals that a percentage goes into that fund. There's also some state dollars available, and we have really done well with federal dollars as well. So one of the most successful in the country. That to be said, it's not enough. We certainly have a gap of about 100,000. It's calculated of places that people can afford. And we have one of the highest rates of what's called extreme housing burdened, which is more than 50% of the household income being spent on housing. And when you have other costs, obviously feeding the family, transportation, healthcare, and childcare, it really does not leave much at all. So what the federal government will do, hopefully we do have a renewal of our HUD programs. We're hopeful that our good work will be continually recognized with more investments here, and that our private developers will continue to build affordably. We need them to participate. And we know that, as they say, to pencil it out, the deal, it has to probably include subsidy. We're working with our school system. They also have property that can be repurposed, and we've done some projects together. Our faith-based organizations, they've identified property. And so using methods that make the construction more cost-effective, using property that can come in at a lower cost because it's already in the public domain, these are all things that we are doing to promote housing.
And do you see most of that development in the urban core, or is it in other parts of the county? I know there was something that was being built in the south with affordable housing, but is that workforce housing or affordable housing?
So we are building up to 140% of area median income, which would be, let's say, a typical 2-professional household income. So, we're not talking the people who are at the lowest end of the economic spectrum. And that is where we are also woefully behind. So we have to build for all categories. We also want to do as much as possible to build along transit corridors in dense areas. There are programs that encourage greater density along the transit corridors, as well. The Live Local Act that preempts local zoning laws to build more if it's including a percentage of affordable and workforce. So we need all of it, but we also don't want to pave over paradise. So we are working hard to make it part of sound community-friendly policies, walkable neighborhoods, and close to transit wherever possible.
That was great.
Yeah. I think when we think about the cost burdens of young families, we know housing is that first tier, right?
Yes.
And for so many who have babies all the way up to 5-year-olds, their second highest cost is their childcare cost, is their early learning investment. And so thank you for the work the county's doing, the creative, innovative approaches to address the housing challenges. And so I want to pivot a little bit to the role that the county and some of our local institutions, very Miami institutions like the Children's Trust has engaged. Why do we feel that access to affordable, high quality early learning matters? And why does it matter in terms of increased access and maintaining funding from the federal, state, and even local and hyper-local institutions for subsidy programs like school readiness or the Children's Trust Family Forwards program?
We do have some great programs in Florida, and we do have VPK, which is very important. It doesn't have the full number of hours that are needed for working families necessarily, so there are still costs, but it is definitely a step in the right direction. And you've got scholarship programs. Federal dollars through the states do provide to certain families a subsidy for childcare. Unfortunately, there's a gap. And so we were able at the county to put some dollars into that hole in the donut, so to
Yes.
speak, where there were families that really could not afford, but they were just beyond that eligibility. That's the kind of thing we need the state to increase the percentage of poverty that would allow families to participate in that program. So that certainly is important to the future. And as far as why is it important, it's not just to give parents peace of mind so they can go to work. It's to prepare these children for the future. We know that exposure to quality childcare is what is the building block to being ready to learn once you start in kindergarten.
Right.
We know that it builds the future for staying in school. People do arrive with a deficit if they haven't been exposed. So it's really, as a society, to our extreme advantage, necessity to get the children off on the right foot. Dr. Will Bleckman, may he rest in peace, who was a huge advocate of early brain development and was the president of Kiwanis International and made early childhood brain development the priority when he served in that role, told me on his deathbed that we needed to do everything we could to address the needs for early childhood, especially brain development. And that includes not just stimulation, academic, but it also includes nurturing, consistent care, a sense of trust and confidence that children develop. And so much what the Early Learning Coalition has done is to build those standards, to do the training, to elevate the teachers, to make sure that we could pay them, to keep them in the profession and make real professionals. So those things are critically important. I'll mention Head Start. Head Start is a national program, globally recognized, that has existed for several decades and is proven to be the most effective in long-term outcomes, not just short-term, long-term success outcomes. Unfortunately, the current administration in Washington is looking at reducing some of the standards of that program, which include wraparound services for families, participation of parents, because we know at the end of the day, parents are still the primary educators, and we need to bring them in to the educational equation. So we're in the county, we actually administer the Head Start and Early Head Start program for the county in partnership with the school system and private providers. And we've got almost 8,000 enrolled, and we want to continue that program, and we want to make sure that we maintain those high standards.
Mayor, we know you're familiar with your passion for all things community, but you're running essentially a multi-billion-dollar corporation with tens of thousands of employees, and yet you still found time to establish a Mayor's Children's Commission, which started a couple of years ago. You made an investment in early learning for those families that don't currently qualify for one of the state-sponsored programs. What drove you to create the Children's Commission? And again, we know you're passionate about all this, but you're a very, very busy person. And on top of that, you have the seaport and you have the airport, so you're quite a busy person. And yes. Let me also just mention that you're a very visible mayor. Wherever I go, you're there. And I don't know if you have a twin, a double, but we really appreciate having you so involved in this area and your visibility in the community and your community engagement work, which you've done for your entire career. And you haven't stopped as mayor despite how busy you are. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Very kind. Well, the children really are my passion. That really is my primary cause for everything, is that children have the right to be loved and nurtured and have their full potential realized. And if we don't do that again, it's at our own peril. So while I'm now the mayor over things like an airport and a seaport and transit system, my real love is the children. I really wasn't able to do as much as I wanted as mayor. And fortunately, we have great partnerships like Early Learning Coalition and the Children's Trust and our school system. But really, it was Will Bleckman on his deathbed who made me promise to do everything in my power. And I thought to myself, well, it's not going to be just what the county can do. It's more of a convening power. Right. And so that did lead me to step back into the area of my greatest love. And you know that I worked in child welfare for many years. I ran the foster care system, child welfare system, oversaw the certification of child care facilities, so many things that were so important to me. And then working now across the whole county, we did bring people together through this Children's Commission, and we've created a way to help families access mental health services. We're using ACEs, which is the early childhood experiences and risk factors across our county and with others, to make sure that we look at, well, what are the factors that put children at risk, and make sure that we're addressing things early. Mm-hmm. So among others, thank you so much for that.
No, and we appreciate that. And I know we're all still meeting, and you have different groups, and you basically opened it up for anyone who wants to participate and wants to join and wants to make this community better for children and families. So we really do appreciate that.
Well, one of our great strengths as a community is that we do have so many people who care, and we have so many initiatives, and oftentimes those initiatives don't coordinate. And so it's helpful to be the collaborator in chief sometimes.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. When I think about our community, when I think about Miami-Dade, I think about how much promise the community has and how much we have yet to connect, right? To interconnect, to maximize the opportunities in front of us. I always like to think that the best days for Miami are in front of it. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to ask a little bit about what you think when you look at the horizon of our community, when you look at the next 1, 2, 3, 4 years. What do you see as those synergies, those opportunities? What is the next level and threshold of collaboration and connection we can have together when we're thinking about supporting young families and helping our littlest learners get into a position to express their potential?
We do live, in my opinion, in the epicenter of the universe.
Yeah, me too.
We are so blessed with our natural beauty, with our incredible diversity and our unity relative to other places. So, and we've been discovered. We're paradise discovered. Yeah. So we have people moving here who really are investing in our future, in our businesses, in our civic space. Right. And our challenge is to tap that in ways that will have that long-term impact. And I do think that that is possible. I look forward to continuing that in my next 2 years, my last 2 years as mayor, 2 years and a quarter, but who's counting? And then on the other side to continue that effort, because with great wealth, which we now have, comes great responsibility and great opportunity. So the rising tide to lift all boats. So that's been my message really my whole career. And I want to lean into that because I see that the people who are moving here want to be part of making sure that we can continue to shine and thrive on the world stage. And just as we've always shown people how to live with that diversity, I think we can show the world how to live with investing in a brighter future. It just is a multiplier effect. Right. When we invest in our children and then they become the workforce of the future, that will continue to spur the kind of growth and development that people are looking for here. Right. And I think, a couple of statistics that we know across the state in our community that speak to that. We recently got our voluntary pre-kindergarten kindergarten readiness scores for the Early Learning Coalition, and our beautiful babies are at 75% readiness. That sounds great. This is a big deal. Yes. And correct me, am I?
No, it's yeah. So what's happening is that in the VPK program, we have progress monitoring at the beginning of VPK, towards the middle of the program year, and at the end of the program year. And we see that children are making tremendous gains, more than any of the other large counties in Florida. Wow. In Miami-Dade. However, there's a little footnote there. The however is that some of those children, while they are making tremendous progress during VPK, which is so important, and attendance is so important, some of them may still not achieve VPK readiness when they get to kindergarten, it is because, as you mentioned earlier, in those first 3 years, they're coming in so far behind. And although they're making tremendous gains because the VPK program is wonderful, they may still not be a full kindergarten readiness. And that's one of the things that we still need to address. And the family engagement is so important because we need to remind parents attendance is one of the critical factors that drives readiness, right? And what happens in those first 3 years, as Dr. Bleckman, you mentioned, always made sure that he reminded everyone, let's work on those first 3 years. They're so critical. And by the time to VPK, now they're ready for VPK. And by the time to get to kindergarten, they're ready for a successful elementary school experience. And that's one of the challenges that we have statewide. But we also have families that have many challenges, Mayor, as you know, because you've been doing this work for your entire career. They may have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, particularly in this economy. They may not be able to afford the rent. Childcare has become very expensive. And that's why I mentioned sometimes you work and now most of your the money you make goes to pay for childcare. So you have to make those difficult choices. And sometimes parents are making the choice of not being able to work, and now they're not in the workforce. And now our employers have a difficult time with that. So it is very difficult. It is over 80% of our kids that make tremendous progress in VPK. We still have a good percentage of the children that are not ready for kindergarten, but they're not all going or participating in the VPK program. So it's a mixed bag, but I think we can celebrate, as the senator said, we can celebrate our successes with the learning gains that children are making. And a lot of that is because of the support that we have in this community. We have a great public school system. We have some great charter partners and some private schools, and the county has certainly been very involved and engaged. That's not the case in every county in Florida. I can promise you that, Mayor. So we thank you for your leadership in that area.
I'm thinking, as you're talking about in the past, we've had some really tragic stories of children who were left unsupervised, and very tragic things happened to them. I haven't heard of any such stories recently. I do believe that there's a greater awareness in our community between your efforts, Children's Trust, school system, faith groups, and so on, a greater awareness of the fact that children cannot be warehoused or left unsupervised. But that to be said, if people really don't have the means at all to care for children, obviously they're very at risk. So helping everyone to understand that the future depends on those early years of brain development, which again comes along with nurturing. It's not just brain stimulation. I mean, children respond because they are in relationships with people they love and trust. And I also worked in the child welfare system, as you know, and child abuse. And sadly, we haven't eliminated child abuse from our midst.
Not at all.
So we need to continue awareness, intervention, service availability. And I feel hopeful. And it's really good to hear that number, 75%. That is definitely moving in the very right direction.
Yeah. And there's no more, I think what it shows as well, there's no more fertile ground in the state than Miami for the continued work of getting that number from 75 all the way to 100, making sure that every child of our community has true equity of opportunity to express their potential, to be prepared with the high quality education they need. And so we continue to advocate and encourage all of our families to participate in VPK. And to make that choice of investment. And we work incredibly hard with our school readiness providers and with the Children's Trust to braid together the resources to support more and more families who may fall above the income eligibility threshold.
Yes, and we have partners at the federal level with Federal Reserve Bank, which has done a lot of work. Also these cliffs that they're called, where people are eligible and then they make a little more money and they're no longer eligible for that kind of subsidy. These things are really nonsensical public policies that just make it harder for our children to get what they need to thrive.
Mayor, let me ask you, we have 2 elected officials here with us today. So policy, we work on policy, improving policy, and obviously as elected officials, you all need to know from constituents and others in the community, what are some of the changes that we need? What are some of the priorities to create better policies for Floridians and people in local communities? What resonates with you as the mayor when you go to one of these community meetings, or you're hearing from constituents about this? Like you said, it's nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. What really do you think resonates with elected officials in terms of
Mm.
policy? And this is just not a good policy for people. And I know a lot of it is attached to funding, but there are some things that we sometimes can take care of
Yeah.
without funding.
Well, on the funding side, I will say that there are places that have, and we have approved teacher salary increases here in this county. We need to legislate and find funding for pre-K salaries as well,
Right.
because we do need to continue to professionalize that work. There's a lot of turnover. I can tell you from my own 2.5-year-old granddaughter's time in childcare, and she's in an excellent facility, Center for Excellence at the United Way.
Yeah.
There's turnover. Turnover, not so great for kids. They need continuity. One of the great things they do in that school is they take the child from classroom to classroom as they get older with the same teachers, which is wonderful. My granddaughter loves it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, she has lost some cherished teachers for a variety of reasons. So I think salaries are very important. And then really universality. We just need to not have it be, if you can afford quality childcare, you get one kind of childcare. But if you can't, you get another kind of childcare. All of our children are worthy of the investment in their future, in our future. So from a policy perspective, I think we need to help the public understand. They voted for various things to benefit the Children's Trust. Multiple times they voted. The case was made. And it has, I'm sure, been critically important for these outcomes. The case was made for teacher salaries. These things matter. People might not want to pay a general tax, but they will pay for things that they understand are important. So that is critically. As far as other policy matters, I know that the senator has worked on some items in Tallahassee to try to improve quality. That's very, very important. It's not all money by any means, but you do pay for what you get.
Right.
And there is no, I say this in Miami, I say this in Tallahassee, there's no greater investment than an investment in kids.
That's it.
And I think what we're hoping that the mom and dads that are watching this program leave with is confidence that our community leadership has forward vision and has had tremendous commitment to those same young children, to the importance of brain science and the development of those young learners, and that we are all speaking the same language. We have the same mission, and we will continue working lockstep. And we are kind of beginning to wrap up our time together. And I want to share with our folks at home, we will be inviting our Monroe County Commissioner, Holly Rothstein, to join us for our next episode. Commissioner Rothstein served as the Monroe County Mayor recently, and previously is a former state representative representing Monroe County in the Florida House. We're incredibly grateful, Madam Mayor, for your time and your ongoing commitment to the kids of our community.
Thank you. Thank you to you both. It's really been a pleasure. I did not mention one thing I'll quickly put out there. It's not only the direct support of children, it's the support of families.
Absolutely.
We started with housing, but let's also talk about job training and placement and family counseling. All of these things make a difference, and we want our families to also grow with their income potential so that they can continue to provide more and better for their children.
I think that kind of circles us back to the Federal Reserve's work, right?
Yes.
Multi-generational prosperity initiatives.
Yeah.
And what is more Miami than that? Right?
That's right. We're the home of the American dream.
Yes, we are.
And to close out, I'd like to share the Early Learning Coalition of Miami-Dade and Monroe works to support children's early learning and development through school readiness, voluntary pre-kindergarten, and early Head Start, and other family-focused initiatives. Together with our community leaders and partners, we're helping build a stronger future for our children, for our families, and for our economy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Really appreciate seeing you here today.
Thank you. Great.